Hey guys, unfrequented world, out in the bush behind the house, taking a bit of a walk today, and I want to discuss something a little different. I don't want to just walk through the forest and look for structures and things today. I want to actually have a discussion on the credibility of Bigfoot itself, you know, the case for Bigfoot, as it were, and maybe some points as to why there could be no Bigfoot. I've actually brought some field notes. I have read hundreds and hundreds of reports online, guys. I watch every YouTube channel that puts out Bigfoot videos, and I've been doing this for probably 10 years. I had my own experience 20 years ago, and that's what got me interested in it. And then as things have progressed online and all these shows, I think Finding Bigfoot was the big one where everybody started talking about it and putting experiences online. Before that, there wasn't a lot of stuff online. But there's a ton of information and research, and today I want to talk about it. So very cold this morning, minus 12 degrees Celsius. Thick frost, so I've had to wait. It's now after lunch, and I just want to climb up here on this nice big bedrock Canadian shield here somewhere in the sun and have a discussion with you guys. I want to talk about the science side of it. I want to talk about the oral native traditional side of it, and I want to talk about just, you know, some of the sightings and things, the general information that's out there that could be a good reason as to why this thing exists. So let's find a nice warm spot and have a discussion. So I really wasn't thinking today. I didn't bring a tripod. I should have. It would have been the perfect thing to just set up here and talk with you guys. What I want to start off by saying is I keep getting recommendations from you guys. Oh, have you seen this site? Have you seen this YouTube page or channel? Chances are, guys, I've seen it. Keep recommending them. But I have seen most of what's out there, and I try to follow everybody. Now, that being said, I mean, this is just my opinion. Some of them are too quacky to follow. Colorado Bigfoot, oh God. For entertainment value, yes, but I can't take what this guy says with any grain of seriousness. And some of these other ones that, and that's not a knock, guys, watch the channel, whatever. I'm not telling you to watch or not watch any other channel. Do whatever you guys like, right? At least there's entertainment value in these channels. What I don't like are the ones that are making money off of it. So, you know, beware of that, right? If you see guys writing books all of a sudden or promoting their Sasquatch t-shirts and hats every channel, okay, guys, that's just a money grab. That's all that is, right? And anyone who tells you anything definitively, oh, Bigfoot does this, these are the habits, they work in this many groups, family groups, this size, and da-da-da. Guys, they're an unproven thing. We've said that 100 times on this channel. Anyone who proclaims to be an expert is full of something that is not very good smelling. Let's put it that way. There are no Bigfoot experts because this is not a proven creature, right? So you can't have an expert in a field of something that doesn't exist. And on that note, let's get into the scientific side of it here. So a few years back, there was the Melba Ketchum study, which really caught my ear, hearing, hey, they actually released a study on this. Because being a scientist myself, you're telling me that they've released an article, which would be a peer-reviewed thing, and they've sequenced Bigfoot DNA. Well, let's delve into that a little bit, because a few years back I did end up looking into it, and I ended up looking into it again because I was going to pass this information on to you guys, and I didn't want to mess any of this up, right? So let's just say that it's not all as clear and concise as it should be. You know, so if we talk about the things that you and I or anyone else are going to find in the field, that would be physical evidence, right? We could find things like tracks, hair, scat. You would get DNA evidence from these things. Now, the problem is that quite often this DNA gets contaminated when we collect it. Okay, people out in the field collecting this. If you touch it in any way with your fingers or anything that has been touched by your fingers, you are contaminating the sample. The other thing that people don't know is do not put samples into plastic bags, guys. Paper envelopes. Plastic will degrade a hair sample or a skin sample. I took forensics in university, so you don't want to store these things in a Ziploc plastic bag, okay? If you have a really good sample of something and you're sending it into a science firm, don't put it in a plastic bag. Okay, so what was the Melba Ketchum study? It was a study that basically said we're going to take 111 DNA samples that were collected by random people out in the field saying, hey, check out my scat, check out my hair that I found, skin samples, whatever it may be. 111 different samples were sent in from 35 different sites, I believe, across North America. And Melba Ketchum did this project, which she states that Bigfoot is a human relative that arose 15,000 years ago, okay, as a hybrid cross of a modern Homo sapien with an unknown primate species. What she basically said was that there was mitochondrial DNA, which is from the female side. So they're saying that Bigfoot's mother was human and an unknown Homo sapien as a father donor, okay? So a lot of people online were saying, does that mean alien? What does that mean? I don't know what that means. But here is the flaw with what, as you delve into this study, here are some of the things that I learned, okay? This article was published in the De Novo Scientific Journal. So now if I have 50 of you looking at me right now going, De Novo Scientific Journal, I've never heard of that, you're not alone. No one has heard of that. They have only published one article, and you can therefore guess which article it was. It was the Melba Ketchum study, okay? So in this study, they took 111 DNA samples of Bigfoot hair, blood, mucus, nail, saliva, and skin tissue, and these were collected from 34 North American sites and sequenced for the study. So this article that was published was also not a peer-reviewed study. What does that mean? That means that no other experts in the field of genealogy or sequencing or DNA or any of these things looked at this study before it was published. It was just one group, their data, their findings, and published, which is not how science work is done. Okay, so subsequently, this study was dismissed by the scientific community as unprofessional bunk due to the lack of Melba's professional experience as a primate geneticist. She was not a primatologist. She was not a geneticist. This was not her field of study. She was a veterinarian. So if you're in the science field, you know that other scientists look down on scientists who do work that aren't in their area of expertise. And she was not an expert in any of these fields that related to this study. Other hindering factors included the possibility of sample contamination, both from within the lab and while samples were collected in the field. So we had bad field sample collection practices going on. And the final nail in the argument being, how could Dr. Ketchum conclude that she had definitively sequenced Bigfoot DNA from one study alone when there were no any peer reviews or other groups involved in the study? If you are doing anything in science, we know that it has to be replicatable. It has to have a minimum number of trials. The minimum number of trials in any science project from high school on is, as you guys know who have taken science, 35 samples, right? You would have to replicate this work a minimum of 35 times for it to become accepted science. And that's a bare minimum, right? Usually, depending on the how big the study is and what it's about, it could be hundreds or thousands of times that we would replicate this work. So she came up with one solution from one study, and therefore everyone said, this is crap. And so if you do your own research into the Melba S. Ketchum study, guys, you'll hear it referenced all the time from Bigfooters and whatnot. There's a lot more bunk to it than scientific advancement in all reality. To my knowledge, there were 2 other DNA studies that were done. Both of them had much lesser samples collected in the 30 range, and all of the samples that were sent in were identified, and they weren't just North American, they were Himalayan samples. All of the hair samples were found to be bear, etc., wolf, porcupine. So there has never been an actual finding that said, hey, this is a hominid, unknown hominid, okay? So nothing has ever been found scientifically. Now we do get some that can't be processed, that can't be matched with anything else, and that could be contaminated or not. We don't know. So there are anomalous samples out there. They just have not been confirmed to be Bigfoot. That being said, there are a lot of samples that are collected. So I do believe guys are out there collecting things that are anomalous. Hey, look at this hair, look at this scat, look at the size of that scat. So it very possibly could be. We can't write this off just because it hasn't been scientifically proven, because Bigfoot is the death of the modern scientist, right? You don't want to say, I'm going to go study Bigfoot. Everyone looks at you like you're bonkers. You don't want to run a Bigfoot YouTube channel. Everyone looks at you like you're bonkers, okay? It's not an accepted scientific field of study, and that is turning people away. Nobody wants to commit career suicide by studying Bigfoot, right? Let's talk about John Green for a minute. He's just one of many researchers that I pulled. He had a very long and storied career, and over the course of his research, John Green was a renowned Bigfoot author and researcher. He compiled and explored a database of over 1,300 cases, okay? And that spanned from the turn of the century right up to 1995. Those were John Green's notes. So if we take one person and look at, he had 1,300 cases, there has to be something going on here. The number of reports that people are putting in, hundreds a year throughout North America. The BFRO has hundreds and hundreds of cases. I have personally read through pretty much everything on the online databases, okay, that is available. There were a few other sites that had people could submit stories, and I mean, you can find these in Reddit groups and things like that too. Again, you have to take that with a grain of salt, right? Lots of people just want to make a story for the entertainment factor, but when guys actually submit to the BFRO, they actually usually come out, and I submitted my case many years ago to the BFRO and had an interview with them and had to give them all the locations and had to have a collaborating witness who was Brian, who owned the camp that we were at, and there's a whole field of things that you go through that actually collaborate your story, and you have to show it to them on the map, and they go and investigate it, okay? So the BFRO is a little bit more legitimate than some of these Reddit sites and whatnot. Not saying that there aren't true stories on those other places, because there absolutely could be. And entertainment factor alone, guys, they're worth checking out. But again, there's no definitive proof to be found from people recounting stories, unless we start to talk about oral native tradition. So I've also collected some notes here for you guys. I want to talk about that for a minute as well. So just in my research, I have found over 70, I think it was 76 North American tribes, and then there are all sub-tribes of some of the bigger groups. And guess what? Every one of those groups has a name or an oral tradition for Bigfoot. I'm going to give you guys some of the names and some of the local names from around here, okay? Some of the translated names refer to Bigfoot as Big Elder Brother, Tall Man, Wild Man, Hairy Man, Stone Man, Tree Man, Cannibal, Giant, Trickster, Devil of the Forest, Wild Woman, the Frightener, Owl Woman, Boss of the Woods, the Five Brothers, and on and on and on. I find the ones that refer to Bigfoot as a woman very fascinating, because my own personal experience was that of a screaming woman outside of Brian's camp. It sounded like a woman being murdered. We catch interesting things on this channel, audio sounds all the time through the parabolic or just when we're walking around, and I have never heard anything to this day, 20 some years later, that resembles anything like I heard that night. It was, I hate to say, you know, terrifying, bone-chilling, all of that, but it absolutely was. I've never heard anything like it before or since. I kind of don't want to because it was terrifying, but I need to get it on camera. And that is why I do what I do, is to try to find some proof of this or debunk it, you know, to find an animal or something that I can say, hey, that's what I heard. And hey, look, it's a rabbit being killed by a lynx. Had its head ripped off, and wow, it made that same sound. I don't think it was, guys. I don't think there is an explanation for what I heard animal-wise, and that's why we do what we do on this channel. Hopefully someday we're going to be able to capture it, either audio or video, and present it to the world. So local tribes here, we have just a couple of them. We have Algonquin, we have Iroquois, we have Cherokee, Cree are part of the Algonquin, but I'll give you some information, some of the names these guys use. The Iroquois refer to Bigfoot as Ot-nu-yar-he, stonish giant. The Cherokee refer to Bigfoot as Nun-uni-wee, which means stone man. So there's a connection right there that natives in the same area are referring to this as a stonish giant or stone man. Okay, and these were warring tribes. These tribes killed each other on sight, and yet they still had the same legends, right? The Cree or Anishinaabe, Wetiko, and that means man-eater or cannibal. Okay, so they referred to this as something you don't want to run into in the forest. Now, that's just a couple of the local ones here in my area. I encourage you guys, the reason I'm getting into this, you want to talk about fascinating stuff. You want to look at Wendigo and tricksters and things like that, and they all kind of have an element of what we're finding on this channel here. No, we haven't seen a Bigfoot, but I have captured what I refer to as paranormal stuff. You guys have seen it. Gear not working properly, whistles, flashing lights, things like that. You know, are these the things that the natives were referring to? And I encourage all of you guys to go and look at your local native lore, okay? There are books, there's online stuff. This stuff is fascinating. So with any study of oral tradition, you want to keep in mind, right? It should be noted that hundreds of forest spirits, both major and minor, exist in native tradition. So we could always throw in, people would say, well, they mention Bigfoot, but they also mention all these other things that don't exist. Maybe they do exist, guys, right? So native tradition could include things like creator gods, small people, folk heroes, and other local creatures such as the thunderbird. Right around here they refer to thunderbird, which is a giant mythological bird who creates thunder by flapping its wings. And we also have another local one here, and these are just 2 out of hundreds, guys. The great serpent, Missy-Kinopik, okay, an underwater horned serpent who lives in deep water and causes many human drownings a year and is also a man-eater, okay, and that one there is, if we go up towards the Ottawa River, where my camp is, 130 feet in the middle of that river, there are legends, local legends of... what did I say his name was? Missy-Kinopik. There are legends of Missy-Kinopik here in the Ottawa River, overturning canoes and eating braves as they were crossing the Ottawa River. So these are that's just a bit of my research I've done, and I've done tons of stuff, guys. I just wanted to point out that I think if you're going to look at Bigfoot, you need to look at the bigger picture, which includes all the local oral traditions, because there are other things that I'm finding here that happen I can't explain. Is it all tied together, you know? Is Bigfoot some form of Wendigo or trickster? Or are they separate entities, or is it all the same thing? We don't know. And you guys know I'm a science-based guy, and a lot of the stuff that's online, especially the channels that are communicating via voice messages and head messages and all that, I personally don't believe that, but I mean, I'm not going to tell you not to believe that. For me, I need some kind of scientific proof, and for me the proof is going to come either through an audio or video recording from a drone, from a camcorder, or my trail cameras that are just out here, and hopefully, you know, we're going to capture something. And that's why I've got 110 videos now in the series, and today was just a little bit of an eye-opener of there is more to the story, guys. If we look at the number of cases where physical evidence is found, footprints, castings, all of that stuff, there is a great case for this creature to be alive and exist here. And we know that from other similar creatures that live here, it is possible. They could hibernate, pass through, migrate, whatever, eat deer, eat trees, we don't know, right? Remember, anything is possible, and I think this creature could exist. That's why I do what I do. And I totally believe that whatever we have out here that messes with us has a sense of humor. And that's why I find like the name trickster, and we talk about spirits that are playing tricks, moving things. It just seems like, you know, when we brought in the spirit box and we got communication that was funny, like playing with us, and even said, "Gotcha," after it scared the bejesus out of my brother and I one night. We were doing a night investigation, and he stepped on the tile for my weeping system, and it made a noise, and I jumped, and then he did it again, and he looked at the camera and smiled, and as soon as he did that, the spirit box said, "Gotcha." And I totally think that there is some kind of communication going on through that spirit box, and we're going to continue to use that. Maybe we're going to get it out here in the bush and try it again. I've only brought it out in the bush and tried communication with it once, and I kind of got a real creepy feeling. And a lot of people afterwards said, you know, were there natives on that land? Absolutely, guys. There were many tribes. That's all there were up here were natives, right? So Algonquin, Iroquois, those were the main ones in here. Anishinaabe. There's a mix of Cree, and if we go a little bit west of here, Cherokee as well. So all kinds of natives around here, and I believe that's possibly what we're getting through the spirit box's communication with those guys. I think if you go into it with an open mind, you're not being disrespectful or anything, you're just seeking answers and truth. I think we are getting answers. The key here is to be scientific, but to be open-minded. And if we can do both of those things, it's going to take somebody like me who can put science and forensics and field study and gathering, you know, good evidence in a proper fashion. It's going to take somebody like that and a dedication to just get out in the bush every day to find the evidence, okay? But there are a lot of people out there who are presenting other things that may or may not be true with, you know, mind speak and all of that stuff. I can't say that that's not true. It hasn't happened to me, but there are weird things that happen here, and it's going to take somebody who's open-minded to both sides to answer this question, I think. So thanks for joining me on the journey, guys. Stick with us, lots more to come, and check out your local native lore, okay? You want to find interesting stuff, you want a winter's worth of study, check out the native stuff, guys. It's fascinating. Did anyone notice Gary's new glasses? Yeah, I'm old. Bifocals. You want to talk about a dizzy trip for the last 2 days? Get yourself a pair of transgressive bifocals. Yeah, fascinating. Yeah, it's almost like I'm back in college, but I'm not. I just have to put these on and it's a trip.